Well, we seem to be in a situation now where you are in the country matters as much as to how you play on the pitch. Yes, hello and welcome to this week's Women's Football Chat, the show dedicated to the third and fourth tiers of women's football here in England. That's the FA Women's National League. My name is Chris Gadsby. I'm here every Thursday at 6 p.m, bringing you the very latest from the FAWNL, the 6 divisions within it and the 72 teams that play in it. And the big news this week is that we've had the determining round draw for this year's League Cup and League Plate competitions. We will get onto that in a few moments' time. But before we do that, we'll have a look at some of the other news that has come out from the FAWNL in the last 7 days. And it's just a couple of little bits, really. Firstly, we've had the first alteration to the board already because Plymouth Argyle against Exeter City, which was meant to be played midweek in that final week in September, is now not being played there. It is moving to the 9th of October, and it's being played under the lights at Home Park as well. So that has moved from the 25th-ish of September through to the 9th of October. And other news as well comes from Swindon Town, who say that the first 4 home games of their season will be played at the Nigel Eddy County Ground, which is the men's stadium. They say on their website, not a huge amount, be honest, but their first 4 home games of the FA Women's National League campaign will be played at the Nigel Eddy County Ground. Tickets are already available to support the women's first team ahead of the start of their next campaign. So those 4 games, Bournemouth Sports, Southampton Women's, Portishead Town and Abingdon United on the 25th of August, the 8th of September, the 15th of September and the 25th of September respectively. So first 4 games at least played at the men's stadium. And other than that, it's not really been a tremendous week in terms of news. Teams are just ticking along, announcing their players, playing these pre-season games, either publishing the results or putting them behind closed doors, and nobody knows if they won 6-0 or lost 6-0. And we're just waiting really for the start of the season. But we are now in August the 1st, which means that as this goes out on Thursday evening, we have 2.5 weeks before the start of the new season, which means we've got this week's show. Next week's show, I've got an interview lined up, all being well. And then on the 15th, we are back into it with previewing the opening round. The opening round of fixtures in the FAWNL, with all 72 teams in action on the opening day of the season. So we shall get into really the big news of the week, and that is that on Monday the determining round draw came out for the FAWNL League Cup and League Plate. You'll remember, as with previous years, the winners go into the League Cup, the losers go into the League Plate. Now, difference this year is that in the League Plate, we will also have the addition of these PGA sides into the competition. So just before we get into who's drawn who in the draw, let's have a read of what the FA Women's National League have put out about the Cup and the Plate competitions. And what I'll do is I'll read through the entire article and then I'll go through some of the response that we've had to this article. So the headline: FAWNL introduces prize money for cup competitions. The league has also formed a relationship with professional game academies for the 24-25 season. The FA Women's National League has today confirmed a series of progressive developments for its cup competitions that will further strengthen tiers 3 and 4 of the women's football pyramid. For the first time, sides participating in the FAWNL's two cup competitions, the FAWNL Plate and FAWNL Cup, will be competing for prize money. The investment is a reflection of the growth of the FAWNL over the last few seasons in parallel with the wider women's game, and will ensure league member clubs continue to invest in their development. A determining round of fixtures takes place at the start of the season, with the winning sides entering the cup and the remaining sides entering the plate. From the 24-25 season, the determining round will now take place in midweek in order to accommodate more league fixtures taking place in weekend slots. The draw for the determining round will be structured to minimise travel. Big sentence there. FAWNL has also announced it will be forming a new relationship with the professional game academies from the new season, with PGA sides invited to enter the FAWNL Plate. So, with a couple of exceptions, PGA sides are going to be in with Tier 4 sides majoritively. The move will grow and strengthen the existing relationships between the Super League, Championship and the National League, while boosting player development opportunities and giving young players more competitive senior matches. Now, it has then broken down the prize money. So the FAWNL Cup, that has prize money of, well, it has a pot of £28,000. So in round one, £400 for the winner, £100 for the loser. Round two, £500 and £125. £1,000 for the quarter-final, £250 for the loser, £2,500 in the semi, and £4,000 and £1,000 in the final. Now, of course, you do still have the preliminary round in there, which you get no prize money for. And then in the plate, this only comes in at the quarter-final stage. £1,000 for the winners, £250 for the losers, £2,500 for the semi-final, and £4,100 for the final. So the final three stages, final, semi-final, quarter-final, has the same prize money in the cup and the plate. The difference being in the plate, if a PGA Academy team reaches those rounds of the competition, they don't get the prize money. So if a PGA side wins the plate, then they don't get the £4,000. So in terms of the total pot, that's much more difficult to calculate because it ranges from absolutely nothing at all to quite a bit. So that's the situation in terms of the prize money. Now, it has caused a bit of a stir on social media, mainly from the previous FAWNL board, i.e. Carol West, Jane Roberts. There's others who I apologise because the names have gone out of my head at this instance, but they've been saying how this isn't actually the first time that the FAWNL has offered prize money in these competitions. So in order for the show to be as accurate as possible, I asked Carol about this. And she says that so the cup winners received £2,000, the runners-up £1,000, the plate winners £1,000 with the runners-up of £500, and then they had reserve cup and plate winners and runners-up as well. So there was only money for the finalists then, but they also gave the clubs travel subsidy, which couldn't be used from FA money. She has gone into areas where the FA wouldn't support cup travel or prize monies, and would not allow us to use any money we received from them, grants to fund it, etc. So they had to look at raising money through other league activities, and they couldn't get sponsorship or partners because that would then conflict with FA sponsorship and partners, because it obviously all comes under the FA bracket. But there was prize money before this season, admittedly only for the finalists, but there was prize money before this season. So when the FA are now coming out and saying that for the first time they're competing for prize money, it has, and I can completely understand why, rubbed some of the old the former FAWNL board up the wrong way, because they put a lot of hard work in over several years and are kind of being ignored and forgotten about. So that's kind of where we're at with the FA Women's National League. Now, the one sentence I've got a problem with, and it's what I mentioned briefly in the introduction to the show there, is that the draw for the determining round will be structured to minimise travel. Now, that was always the case to an extent, in that it was still regionalised. It wasn't a completely national draw for obvious reasons, but it was regionalised into pretty much your southwest, southeast, Midlands, north sort of regions. Because it is now midweek, that has really reduced what's available for all of these teams. And what I mean by that is that not only now are you within your region, but you are also limited to where the maximum travel distance is on a midweek game, which is why in some respects I'm saying that who you get drawn against, and as a result your chances of getting through to the cup, and as a result of that the prize money that you can get, because in the plate you have to get to the quarter final, in the cup you only have to get to the first round to get some money, suddenly depends on much more where you are geographically, because the amount of teams you can play is significantly reduced. And let's just have a look at the cup draw, and then I'll go through what I mean by that. So if we just have a look first at this determining round then. So these fixtures are all to be played week beginning 26th of August. Abingdon United against Oxford United. Actonians take on London Bees. AFC Sudbury against Billericay Town. Barnsley against Barnsley Women's. Boldmere St Michael's take on Stourbridge. Bridgewater United Plymouth Argyle. Burnley against AFC Fylde. Chatham Town #United. Chesham United against Watford. Chorley take on Cheadletown Stingers. Derby County against Loughborough Lightning. Exeter City Portishead Town. Gwalior United Bristol Rovers. Halifax Leeds United. Huddersfield Town Doncaster Rovers Bells. Hull City Lincoln City. Leafield Athletic Rugby Borough. Lewis Worthing. Liverpool Fed Stockport County. London Seaward Dulwich Hamlet. Maidenhead United Ashford Town. Middlesbrough Durham Sestra. Moneyfields AFC Bournemouth. Northampton Town Cambridge United. Norwich City Ipswich Town. Nottingham Forest Notts County. Peterborough United Lincoln United. Queen's Park Rangers AFC Wimbledon. Rail Bedford Milton Keynes Dons. Solihull Moors West Bromwich Albion. Southampton Women's Bournemouth Sports. Sporting Cows Sutton Coldfield Town. Swindon Town Keynsham Town. Wolverhampton Wanderers Stoke City. Worcester City Cheltenham Town. And York City Norton and Stockton Ancients. So you can see just from those that the draw is quite regionalised. It's very strongly playing the teams that are local to you. I've asked the FA for just a bit of indication on how the draw was done. Were they really put down into mini pots of 4 or 6 teams essentially? I am as yet not had a response as I'm recording this on Thursday morning. What I'm going to do is I will give them up until probably around 2 o'clock for a response, and if I get one, then I will insert it into the show. But at kind of 2 o'clock, I need to start editing it and exporting it and the likes to get the show up for 6. So if I've got a response by then, I'll add it in. If I haven't, then I will have to put it into next week's show if I get one at all. If you're unaware of Talking Woso's FAWNL map, then this is it, where what he's done is he's gone through and looked at where all the teams play, and he's put them on, and you can search by, you can take out all the Northern Premier Division teams if you want, etc. But for this, I'm going to keep it on everybody, and you can see what I mean. So let's start down towards the bottom. So Lewis and Worthing, I mean, Lewis I know for a fact because I did a graphic on it a while ago, can obviously reach everybody in London within the allotted time, but they are playing Worthing. Then you've got the 4 teams here, which may well have been in a little pot themselves. I mean, it might have been all 6 and that got very lucky, but you've got all 4 there themselves. Plymouth and Exeter would be the logical choice, but again, I know from doing these graphics that neither of them can reach Gwalior United up here in Newport. So it would have to be one of these 4 teams. Equally, Gwalior can't get down to Exeter or Plymouth. So what you're looking at there then is you've got some pots that are overlapping. It could have been a draw out, and like they sometimes do in the Euros or something, you can't have, in the Champions League, can't have 2 teams together, so they move them down, and it could have got very complicated. Still maintain that it should have been it should have been shown, at least so people know what's happening, because you avoid situations like this where I go around the country and I go, that's logical, that's logical, that's logical. So we've got a situation here. We've got Plymouth Argyle. They are coming up against Bridgewater United, who are here, and Exeter City take on Portishead, who are this team here. So again, you've got 2 pretty equal sides there. Then Gwalior United, they're taking on Bristol Rovers, which is the team closest to them via road over the Severn Bridge, which leaves Keynsham on their own, and therefore they take on Swindon, which they do. Oxford then take on Abingdon. They're right next to each other. And then you come into London, where Chesham take on Watford, who is this blue team here. Again, very, kind of probably the closest side via road, because on a major road for a coach, obviously these roads here around Cookham are awkward. You'd have to go around, and getting into Watford is easier. Maidenhead United take on Ashford Town, which is that side there. Again, the closest side to them. And then you have the one, admittedly it's difficult to see in the yellow, but you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 sides there in London Bees, who come up against Actonians, close team there, leaving Queen's Park Rangers. Queen's Park Rangers take on AFC Wimbledon, again the closest team to them and not having to go right the way through. Then you've got Dulwich Hamlet. Dulwich Hamlet there, they are taking on from memory, I've lost Dulwich Hamlet now. Dulwich Hamlet are taking on London Seaward, again closest team to them. And then you've got Hashtag United against Chatham Town, closest team to them. AFC Sudbury against Billericay, because once you've sorted all these closest teams out, Billericay Town, their closest one ends up being Sudbury. Then you have Norwich against Ipswich, which are these two out on their own on the right-hand side. You come in again, you've got MK Dons against Real Bedford. Again, the sides, they are closest. Again, could have been in a mini pot with Northampton and Cambridge United, and they could have got obviously lucky there that you end up taking on the side that's closest to them, but they've got very lucky with a lot of draws is what I'm saying, and it just doesn't look great. So yeah, Real Bedford, MK Dons, and then Cambridge United, Northampton Town, those two sides again playing each other, and that then covers all of like the southeast and southwest. Cheltenham Town, one team left on their own, just north of like this group we've already discussed, and they take on Worcester City, closest team to them. West Bromwich Albion, they're in Redditch, they come up against Solihull Moors, again right on each other's doorsteps. And then we move into the Birmingham area, which, again, you would like to think would be a draw because there are so many teams in and around. Wolves out here in Telford, closest team to them is Stoke. Who do they play? Stoke. So then you get into these kind of sides in and around here, which you suspect, well, you would hope would be drawn. You've got Sporting Cowser, Stourbridge, Boldmere St Michael's, and Sutton Coldfield Town. Again, it could have been a very limited draw here, but Sporting Cowser up in the north with Sutton Coldfield Town, and then Stourbridge go up against Boldmere St Michael's. I mean, technically, Stourbridge are closest to Sporting Cowser. That would mean we've got two all tier 3 sides. That Wolves Stoke is the only all tier 3 tie as well, which is unusual. We normally get 2 or 3. We've only got 1. And then out onto the eastern side of Birmingham, then you get Leafield Athletic. Leafield Athletic, because these sides here have already been drawn in a mini pot. Leafield Athletic, their closest one, Rugby Borough, and who do they play? Rugby Borough. You move upwards into the Midlands. The two Nottingham clubs, they're closest to each other, and they have drawn each other. Derby against Loughborough are then the two remaining sides there, and they are coming up against each other as well. Moving over to the east, you've got Peterborough United here, and then there's the two teams in Lincoln, which you would think would go together, but it would leave Peterborough United stuck out on their own. So what they've done, Peterborough, and again, this could well have been a pot of 4, but then you want to avoid Peterborough going all the way up to Hull. So the two Lincoln sides have been split. One goes down to Peterborough, the other to Hull. So again, could have been a draw. Looks like it might not have been, which is a concern. If we move over towards the Manchester area, you've got Liverpool Feds. Now, Liverpool Feds are taking on Stockport County, who are just further than Cheadle. So again, this could well have been a mini pot. Cheadle themselves have got Chorley, who are up here right next to Burnley. You would think that they would play Burnley, however, by making Cheadle going to Chorley, it minimises the travel because Burnley will then take on AFC Fylde to minimise the travel there. Move over to kind of the Leeds Sheffield area. We've already covered Hull being over there. So you've got the two Barnsley sides coming up against each other in this. Then the next two, Huddersfield, are taking on Doncaster Rovers, which are over here. So you've taken those two. You would be quicker going Doncaster, Leeds, and then you'd go Halifax, Huddersfield. So again, makes you think that there was a draw in there, and the league got lucky with the way that was done. You then have the argument, well, that would be the more straightforward thing to do because you could just pop straight up the A1. So it looks like there was a draw between those 6, you would like to think. And then finally you come up to the northeast, where you've got the 3 teams up there plus York City, and again you're wanting to minimise the travel, so much the same to the splitting the 2 Lincoln sides. You're going to split Middlesbrough and Norton. One's going to play Durham. In this instance, that is Middlesbrough, and the other one is going to play York, and that covers the draw through the FAWNL map. Now again, the problem that we've got here is that, as I said, I'd like to think it was lots of mini pots, and the league got very lucky with you're playing the team right next to you a lot of the time. But as you can see from where I went through all that there are so many instances of, if that team plays that team, that leaves those 2 the next closest and they've drawn each other, and those 2 are then the next closest and they've drawn each other, and those 2 have drawn each other and that's drawn. There's too many instances where it just matches up so perfectly that the odds are very, very slim. And this comes back to my opening point of, now that there is prize money, there was always prize money, but that's in the final. Now there is prize money from round 1 in the cup, and there is more an incentive therefore to get into the cup. The fact that the number of teams you're able to play in the determining round and possibly even the preliminary round are massively reduced makes it a bit of a postcode lottery. For example, let's just take Notts County as an example here. Had they been in a big pot and drawn a Loughborough, or maybe even a Peterborough, or a Lincoln United, or a Lincoln City, I mean, this is my area, so I know for me it's 40 minutes to Nottingham. I know it's 20 minutes the other way to Bourne. You're looking at an hour and a bit of the coach getting round. They could have got a tie that gets them into the cup and gets them some money. They happen to be playing the most local side to them, which happens to be Nottingham Forest, who have gone pretty much full time bar a few players, and they're away. That's going to be extremely difficult for them. There are other ties in there where you're looking at it and teams have got much more difficult ties than they might have got had it been on a Sunday and the regions were much bigger. And I think for a knockout competition where money is involved from round 1, it just seems dangerously set up. As I mentioned earlier, there are fewer all tier 3 ties than there normally are. There are, Wolves versus Stoke is the only all tier 3 tie. I also don't like, and we've mentioned this before, that PGA teams are coming in. I think a lot of PGA teams will play. I am concerned that they will win it because I think it's very different to the EFL Trophy, where you've got an academy against a professional team. Here you've got academy against a part-time volunteer team that are playing for the fun of it. And it just, these are having financial implications on the sides based on who they are playing. And like Burnley against Fard, they were always, when Fard were in tier 3, they were always the midweek teams. That's what they would play. Now they've drawn each other in the cup because, again, they are the most local side. I've gone through that map there. Look how many teams are playing the most local side. Like Abingdon United coming up against Oxford United, that's a tough tie for them. Had it been on a weekend and you could have had a bigger tie, they could have had a Swindon, a Keynsham, a Portishead, a Bridgewater, because they could have done the travel. And we saw from last year they could have won against a lot of those sides. Of course, they can still win against Oxford, but it's more unlikely. And it just doesn't come across great. And again, I think even if the pots were only, okay, we've split it into 12 regions, really small. We've got a London region, we've got a southwest region with, you know, Southampton, Moneyfields, Bournemouth Sports, Lewis and Worthing in it. Even if you just did lots of little 6-ball draws, you could still do it. And again, it brings me back to video them just so you've got parity and everybody can see what's happening. Because it just looks as though somebody has sat down, looked at the map and gone, they're local, so we'll make them play each other, they'll play each other, they'll play each other. And they've just pinched together and everybody, and it's just not a great look. So again, I will await anything from the league. If anything from the league happens, I'll input it here. And if not, then that will about do it for this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. As I said, next week, got an interview lined up for you next week. But thank you very much for watching and or listening to this week's episode of the Women's Football Chat. I'll be back next Thursday at 6 p.m. with that interview, and we will then just be 10 days away from the start of the new season. But for now, goodbye.